Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is purposeful picture that I'm showing you. I'm Amit Malhotra. I'm co-founder of WFM Media, also of McCoy Group. I was back at office today after 45 days. So I've got my mask on and I took out the coffee machine, got it cleaned myself, put coffee and powder and milk from home, put it together, and enjoying my cup of coffee. Hopefully, that I should be able to come back every day, if not every day. But fundamentally, we were just having a chat before the webinar started in terms of working from home and working from office for us as entrepreneurs is not such a challenge differently. It's only the accounting finance, which is pretty much done, of course, online. But will you get used to that system? Would you like to work from home forever? No, probably not. There has to be back to office culture, back to socializing. And now that you have no choice, so you can't say I'm sick of it, because even if you are sick of it, nobody cares, right? You yourself don't care whether you're sick of it or you're not sick of it. So even if some people say I've had enough, I said, okay, do what you want to do. There's nothing you can do. So having said that, wish you all the very best. We are trying to be very careful, opening offices, plants, wherever we have, following all the guidelines and doing our best. I think just allow me a second to just wrap this up. That the world started to never stopped producing. Germany, France, Europe, America, and they continued and said, okay, bring this virus thing head on and we'll take it from there. And they're still there. They've had their casualties and calamities and so on and so forth, but they're still at it. And there's no plus and minus. We did a good job because our health system is not great, so we took some precautions to make sure that we guys, but it will hit us, and there's absolutely no way that you can hide. But I think there's one point that I want to add. Got to be selfish for yourself, for your family, and for your company. That's all you can do at your own level. So we're telling everybody, do what you can do for yourself, for your families, for our companies, and that's it. There's no more you can do. Okay, don't try to do janta ka gyan and janta ka bhala. Do for yourself. You save yourself, you'll save the rest, and the save the rest will save the rest thereafter. And then all the webinars that we're trying to do with teaching and talking, and our wonderful panelists are coming and talking, this will still hold relevance because there'll be buildings to be made, there'll be consultants, there'll be everybody alive, and of course we'll be alive, and there'll be things to do. So having said that, webinar number 11, 12?
Number 10. No, this is number 10.
Number 10. So just a statistic, gentlemen and ladies. WFM Media started on 7th of April. Today is the 5th of May. In 28 days, kudos to our team. We've done our 10th webinar, and we have another probably dozens lined up going forward in the future. So WFM Media is the right place for the facade and fenestration industry. If you want to come, talk to our sales team. And of course, right now it's all being done. Now we have to start paying our staff as well, which we are paying already. But anyways, Ahad, over to you, my friend. I'm sorry I took 2 minutes extra.
No worries, sir. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 10th edition of the WFM Media webinar. As Amit mentioned, this was started on 7th April. We finished 9 webinars, and this is the 10th webinar in almost a month. We've covered different topics with different experts. We believe all the topics we selected were topical for the moment. Today's topic is no different, unitized curtain wall. I think with this COVID-19 outbreak and social distancing here to stay for some time, prefabrication is going to be the norm for some time. It's not that unitized curtain wall is something new. It's always been there, but you will find more trajectory towards unitized curtain wall only because of what you're able to do in the factory. It's a completely factory made product, so this will gain more traction as we progress. Just to give you a quick introduction of today's session, we have the introduction done already, and now we will have a presentation by Shiju Bhaskaran, followed by Anthony John, then a joint Q&A for both the speakers, and then we end the webinar. Any questions you have, you could post the questions on the questions pane, which is at the GoToWebinar panel. So these are questions which are not oral, but you will need to type the questions, and I'll then pick the questions at the end of both the presenters' presentations and shoot it at them. To just give an overview of what's being discussed today, again, the topic is on unitized curtain wall. Shiju Bhaskaran will be giving an overview from a project management perspective, pre-construction checks, the installation process, design to execution with a case study. Anthony John from Schuko India will be talking on unitized curtain wall systems, structural aspects, fabrication, assembly, transportation, logistics, and factory testing of unitized curtain walls. Both our presenters today are well experienced gentlemen in their respective field. Shiju is from a project management perspective and background. He's from Turner Project Management India. He has a great experience in project management of various projects in India and the Middle East and in Central Asia too. He's going to be our first presenter, followed by Anthony John. Anthony John is the Director Technical and Systems at Schuko India. He has over 26 years of experience in this domain, highly knowledgeable in this field. We will start off with our first presenter for the day. I will hand over control to Shiju, who will be making his presentation on unitized curtain wall from a project management perspective. Over to you, Shiju. John and myself will switch off our cameras now.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Bye.
Okay. A very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you, WFM, for inviting me for this wonderful platform where we can share our experiences. I hope everyone knows about Turner. We are one of the leading project management firms outside US and one of the biggest construction companies in the States. Construction of world famous buildings like Burj Khalifa, Taipei 101 were managed by Turner. Today, I'm going to talk about unitized panels. As a project management company, we deal with overall aspects of the project, and facade is one element on that. So my session will be more like PMC perspective or a developer perspective. Consider my session as a starter. Main course will be served by Mr. Anthony. He's a system specialist. So safety comes first. Now, after the lockdown, some of the sites already started. So make sure we take care of all the safety precautions needed as prescribed by the authorities. During this session, I'll generally talk about the facade and the building design criteria. What are the major elements you need to consider during the design, and some pre-construction consideration again as a PMC perspective. Fabrication and installation, I won't be talking much about fabrication. That is, all these mainly these unitized panels are fabricated in the factory. So I'll spend more time on installation, and I'll take one of the project which we did in Turner did in Kazakhstan. I like that project a lot. I was part of that project for 4 years. So that is not just a glass block. So it's my favorite project. So I'll be using that project to explain all different systems well. Finally, closing out in a PMC perspective will be discussed. So now unitized curtain wall, it is one of the first choice for many of the architects and system manufacturers. It has got various advantages. One is, it is very easy, the ease of construction, that is a major thing, and improved quality we can expect because it's mainly fabricated in a factory environment. Modern high-rise building design is generally driven by facade designers. Previously, in a song, when you compose a song, these lyrics were written first, then followed by the music. But nowadays things have changed. First the music will be composed, then the lyrics will be written to that. Similar to that, in modern high-rise building design also, now the concept design will be finalized with the form of the building. So the facade is one of the first primary factor. Then other elements like interior design will be followed. So designers can be, the designs can be regular geometric shapes, or it can be some complex forms inspired from nature, like plants, flowers, living things, or even something like seashells. So in order to comprehend how the concept of facade design is conceived in the minds of the designers, let us look into a few iconic projects which is managed by Turner. I hope you can recognize this building, the tallest tower in the world. The top view of this tower is evolved from a desert lily. It's a flower. So a very stable design with the smooth corner facade. Another wonderful imagination. This building is located in Vietnam. I visited this building 2 years back. They have, you can see, they have, used the design evolution is they have displayed the design evolution in their viewers gallery, one of the top floor. So what they have written there, this photo is shown over there. So in that you can see the lotus flower. Lotus flower in Vietnam, it is considered sacred like in India. So what they did, the designer, they have folded one of the petal of this bud to create the helipad, which you can see over here. So let me take another Turner building. So this is one of the tallest building. This is the tallest building in Taiwan. So in Taiwan, bamboo is an integral part of their country. So the designers say the design is originated from bamboo. Now, this is a totally different concept from the previous buildings which I have explained. So here the designer has arranged a simple geometric shapes into an interesting pattern. He has infused an unorthodox design element in a conventional shape. So I will take the photo courtesy for this building. So now let us move from a dreamy world of architectural design to a more dreary world of engineering where most of us belong. So curvature, especially multi-directional variation in the plane of facade, like the building which I have shown in the first 3 slides, those will be more challenging to execute and even to design. So naturally inspired buildings will be more challenging. Conventional shapes will be much easier. So what parameters? So before talking about design parameters, the physical separation between conditioned internal and unconditioned external environment of a building. That is the general definition of the facade. So a facade designer should consider all these parameters which you can see over here, like air pressure. These are the enemies for the facade, like air pressure, sound, daylight, and snow, heat flow, humidity, fire, and contamination. So designer should take care of all these.
Shiju, what I suggest is if you can switch off your camera, we'll get better bandwidth and a full screen because we're having some issue with your audio. Just switch off your camera. You can press the button over there. The button is on the screen.
Yeah, you mean switch off the camera?
Yeah, just switch off the camera. Right. This is perfect. Thanks. Right, you can go ahead.
Okay, so the designer use different. So the signed for all the loads, as you know, the dead load, live load, things like that, like the equipment load, like facade cleaning equipment, weight load can come on it, and gravity loads like people, snow, and the lateral loads like wind load, lateral seismic force, thermal forces like expansion and contraction. So these are the major items which will come. Then comes to the weather control layer. 1 minute, let me just close the door. 1 minute. My wife also registered for this webinar, and she is listening from the other room. So I'm a bit nervous. You understand, right? So the weather control layer, the primary purpose of weather control layer to manage the rain. So like flashing, drip edges, weep holes, or any horizontal surface should have something like 2 degrees of slope. So those details should be considered in the weather control layer. Then comes the air control layer. So the primary purpose is to control the airflow. So there should not be any airflow into the building from outside. And like we use membrane, sealant, gaskets to control this, the thermal effect, air. Now comes to the thermal control layer. So the purpose of this, primary purpose for the thermal control layer is to resist the thermal transfer. So we should ensure that there is no gap in the insulation. We can use double or triple glazed, facade. Then all other items like rigid foam, thermal break, stone wool, all these comes into thermal control layer. So once the designer completes his design, the responsibility will shift to the site team. So site team like us, we should realize the dream of the designer and the builder by ensuring the safety, quality, and cost parameters. So before starting the execution, we should do many pre-construction exercise. So in a PMC perspective, I will talk about the major pre-construction studies which we will be conducting. So one is like the cost confirmation. So we all know budget should be considered during the design stage itself. But however, in a serious sort of budget comes only after we get the financial proposal from the vendors. Then people will talk about value engineering. So in one of my project, the internal metal panel like aluminum was changed to GA sheet. So something similar like that. So when you do some value engineering options, make sure that the performance is not impacted. So you should do some changes you can vary the specification without impacting much on the performance of the overall facade. Then the shop drawings. So a detailed shop drawing should be prepared about the system, and by defining the grade, the extrusion material, the specification of all these materials should be mentioned in that powder coating, and at the end we should get approval from the consultant. Visual and performance mockup is very important. A full scale mockup representing the actual product. When I say full scale, it can be 2-3 panel in what the same 1:1 scale size that should be prepared for visual inspection and the performance. The performance mockup will be mostly, visual mockup can be done in the site, and performance mockup can be done either in the laboratory and sometimes in the plant if the vendor has got facility to do it. So test to be passed for water penetration, strength, air infiltration, and seismic performance, and acoustic performance also can be tested. Now, safety and constructability study is very critical. So safety precautions for working at height, working at edges, lifting, lowering, pushing, pulling, carrying or moving, all those things we should consider. People should use safety harness because they will be working at the edges, slab edges, and crane and hoist capacity should be decided. Sometimes the facade panel can be taken in the hoist. In one of our project in Thailand, we decided to use hoist for transportation of the unitized panels because the slab cycle was just 4 to 5 days, and civil contractor said they won't be able to provide the crane for lifting of the facade elements. So we decided, okay, let's take it through the hoist, and the material hoist. We decided what should be the capacity of the material hoist so that we can take the panels. So those things should be decided. I mean, studied during the constructability stage, and method statement for the installation should be checked, and it should be approved. Other issue is interface with other disciplines. So facade has got relationship with many other disciplines like BM for this BMU, like building maintenance units. Other than that, all MEPF systems. Facade lighting will have interaction with electricity, MEPF. Similarly, flooring interaction will be there. In one of the projects, we had only 50 mm thickness for the finishing. So all the facade brackets, if it comes in that 50 mm, it will be projecting up. So we decided to resist that, the bracket system. So those kind of decisions should be done earlier. There will be some other interface with, false ceiling that also should be considered. So BIM is a suitable tool for this. I believe there was some other session about facade and BIM conducted previously. So BIM is definitely will be useful. There will be some comeback activities that is called out of sequence activities. So the one problem with unitized facade is like, in case if you cannot install in one panel in a particular floor, all other panels above that line should be kept it for later date. So maybe there are options available now, like in India, one word which I heard after coming to India is you have some kind of other ways to do it, jugaad. So some jugaad may be there, I'm not very sure, but this comeback normally, as per my experience, in case if you cannot, like a crane bracing is going through one of the panel, and or there is a hoist running in that case, or you have some loading dock, or you want to keep some area, want some panel open for some to take some MEP equipment in. All these cases, you should leave all the panel above that level, all the panel throughout from top to bottom. That those are the the compact activities after completion or after executing that interface. Then you come back and you do this. Other thing is quality control. So probably a quality checklist can be prepared. Many of the PMCs already have it. Many of facade contractors also will have it. So quality control manual, what are the tests you will be doing after completion of the the work during the closeout stage. All these things and the inspection schedule, all those things can be discussed during the quality, in quality control. So now let me take you to the field. I hope that will be more interesting. So this is the project which I mentioned previously. So here, this is a fascia. I'm just showing one flow. You can see. Let me just show you how So this is how a unit you define, like a unitized panel. When I say, so one of the panel, what you can see over here, another panel like that. So you create, you divide this entire facade into different sections, like different elements. So this is one unitized curtain wall element that will be fabricated in the factory, and then we come here and install it. So you can see here, when I say in the same, if you can see the cursor here, this is a natural stone. So natural stone, the width is different in different panels. In that case, those are all become unique panels. But it can be repeated. It will come like a modular panel, and it can be repeated in the upper levels. So normally a unitized panel will have a, you can see here, there will be a spandrel on the top like this. Okay, so there will be a spandrel on the top. So a spandrel with thermal insulation, and that can be used for fire separation also. So if you have a nice stone wool kept on that spandrel, it will be helpful to stop spreading of fire and spread fire to the upper levels. So that's one option for this. And sometimes the spandrel, there will be, in most of the cases, in the front of the spandrel, you can see glass element. In this particular project, we have aluminum. I'll go into detail in the coming slide. And secondly, we have the glazing. So the glazing part, it is a can be a fixed glass or operable windows. I'll talk about that in about the glass assembly. I will talk in coming slides. So this is an enlarged view of this spandrel part which I mentioned previously. Here you can see there is a stone cladding which will be fabricated from the factory with its back support, secondary support. Then you have aluminum member here and its back support. So here we have used 3 mm aluminum with the power powder coating as specified in the drawings. So then we have here the stone wool inside, and you can see the connection between the facade and the slab edge. There is a gap. So there we should use a a flashing that will stop any kind of smoke spread into the next level. Smoke is more dangerous than fire, so that should be taken care properly. Now let me take you to the next slide bit about the glass. So this slide, this glass composition I have taken from one of our project in Far East, because the other project which I mentioned is in Kazakhstan, in Astana. There the temperature is temperature difference between internal and external environment is very high. External temperature will go minus 35 degrees. So here Far East will be more or like India, like almost the same kind of humidity and temperature considerations. So I taken something from there. So here you can see in the external element there are 2 glass. So with a sandwiched PVB laminate. So we have used 6 mm glass, another 6 mm glass. In between we have 1.5, 2 mm PVB laminate. It's a clear laminate. If you need some different color, that's also possible. Then 16 mm air gap, and inside 8 mm again it's a high strength glass which is used. So for the project in Astana, which I mentioned, there we need better better control, better insulation. So what we did there, we filled the gap, this air gap, we filled with argon gas. So that will help a lot. So that's why, and in the internal glass element was 12 mm thick. So now there are some innovations in this glass. So I would like to just mention that there is something called smart glass available, or dynamic glass. It's an electronically tinted glass. Like if you are coming to your home, you want to sit in your living room couch, you want to see outside, so you don't want to put a curtain, but the sun is disturbing you. So what you can do, you can control the tint level of this your glass, your facade glass, by using your mobile application. So that is a new innovation in the glass industry. So now let me take to the field about the installations. So this is the first element, this is the first activity of a facade contractor. So here we have a relation, like it's an interaction between a structural slab and the facade element. So this is the first connection element. So we will be installing this U channel. I don't want to use any trade names here. So we'll be installing a U channel. So that is the connection between, that is the connecting element. All the load will be transferred from the facade to the structural slab edge using this U channel. So U channel will be inserted into the reinforcement cage. So here there is a chance during the concrete pour and vibration, the U channel can move. That's a common problem which we are seeing in the industry. So what you should do, make sure you restrain that properly. Nowadays there are these U channel suppliers are coming with some good options like some end to plate and welded mesh, and you can clamp this U channel to that. So that's an option. And you can see there is a T-bolt. That's another connection element which will come later. This T-bolt will be in. You can see there is a lock here. So this will be inserted into this U channel to connect the bracket. So normally this U channel will be almost 250 to 300 mm long, around 3 inches deep into the concrete. So, okay, this photo, this is taken after completing the concrete. So you can see here in this U channel, there is a filler element. So this can be taken out later. Or I will suggest in the as like shown in the previous slide, we can have some kind of tape also, so that all these mortar or slurry will not go inside and get hardened. Otherwise, it will be later difficult to open it up. So the level of this this U channel should be the level of the slab, or in case if predetermined some recess is there, that is also possible. But there is a probability, this can go down and go up. So you need to restrain it properly. Some cases, if I go back to the previous slide again, you have here on the side also there are some of the U channels. You can see that's easy to install. You can nail it to the side formwork. Now here, this is the next activity. So once you install the U channel, so U channel should be tested for its pull out strength, or shear strength, tensile strength, all those things. So these vendors has got equipment for doing that. So you should do that, and that should be done after concrete gets its strength. Anyway, you will get that strength because facade activity will be done in a very later date. So now connection, you can see over here, this bracket is connected by using the T-bolt. So this T-bolt, above the T-bolt, there should be minimum 1.5 to 2 pitch. Then only it will be strong. There should be, you should do the torque test for this. So one important point I need to talk, let me again take you back to this T-bolt. On the top, you can see a notch. This shows the direction of the T-bolt. So once you insert this T-bolt into this channel, this T-bolt should be perpendicular to the longitudinal direction of the channel. Then only it will be locked. Otherwise, it won't be. So now, once you install the bracket, you won't see the connection between the T-bolt and the U channel. So that's why it is important to know the direction. So that on the top of this bolt, you can see this notch. It will show the direction. So in case if you think that okay, it is not perpendicular to the longitudinal direction of this U channel, you should open the assembly and do it again. Now about the fabrication, I won't be talking much about the fabrications because most of the system components are assembled in a plant, or in the factory under controlled working conditions. Quality will be improved, schedule can be predicted, and rapid closure of the building without being affected by the weather condition is possible. So this is very good system. That is the main beauty of this unitized panel. If it is a stick system, The major I mean, the stick system is something like, castings, like a cast in situ concrete. You do everything on the site. And unitized panel, you can consider it's like a prefabricated or precast element. So, but you should, as a PMC, material release, fabrication and assembly, all those things, the time taken, conveyance, how you bring it to the site, where will you store it, all those items need to be studied well in advance. So this is the same project in Astana. So we have, this is one of the unitized panel. Unfortunately, I don't have a photo with a glass window in here. This is a louver, so obviously this is for a mechanical flow. You can see here there is a lot of natural stone. This is a limestone, we procured it from Germany, and there is you can see there is a small hole on the top that is for facade lighting, and the support layer you can see below this C channels, and the lifting hooks. You can see these gasket. So all these water penetration, air entrainment, all those things. This will help. So now let me take you to the installation. You can see. So here this panel is lifted by using the crane, or you can use a winch also. Some cases a monorail can be fixed, or we can use BMUs. Normally BMU come in a very later date, so you should use the crane or winch. So here the facade element is connected to our bracket properly, and the next element, so only one panel is connected here to the bracket, and the other side another panel also will be coming, so it will lock properly. So this photo shows the exact connection between the two panels are showing here, and the gaskets all are visible here. So, and these are the lifting hooks, and you just see this gap, like I have mentioned in the previous during this in the sketch of the span rail. You can see a gap here. Later time you need to seal it by using some a flashing here. So now, okay, this is a photo from inside. Here all this assembly, bracket assembly is covered so that debris will not get in, and this is the flashing. This should be sealed properly. There should not be any gap into it. Now this is a facade, it's a protection for the glass. So normally the facade activity will follow the structural slab activity. So facade work will be starting even while the structural slab pouring is going on the top. So, and there are a lot of interior work which will follow, like MEP activities and interior interior partitions and all. So during that time there is a chance this glass can get damaged. So minor damage can be prevented by using this is spray applied, this spray application. So it will form kind of a membrane that you can peel out during the finishing stage. This will give some protection to the glass, especially when we deal with different package contractors. So every package will think only about themselves, so they won't think about others, So in that case, it's very critical to protect the facade work by facade contractor. So here, this is showing the progress. So the installation is not very labor-intensive work. You can see here one crew, one team is bringing the two guys on the top. They are panel down, and there is another person standing the floor below, and the installation bracket area, installation another person on the lower floor. So it's like around 6 members or so, 6 or 8 member maximum, they can install these panels. It's very easy to install. Now I am coming to the final slides. So only a couple of slides balance. Let's see, these are some of the point you should remember. This is from our experience. So you should coordinate with crane bracing in advance. You can see the crane bracing for a unitized facade. It is always good to take the crane bracing through the glass element. Glass can be installed in a later date. If it is going through the mullion, it will be a problem unless if you have any other jugaad in India, which I don't know. But normally this is done like this. So here you can see one of the cranes are being dismantled. So the openings you can see on the top, the glass panels, that will be a comeback activity like I mentioned previously. So this is one item. Crane capacity, again, very important. Now for this project, some of the facade panels, because the facade panel, the height is 4.5 meter and 1.5 meter width, with all these natural stone. So here, some of the corner panels, I remember it was something like 2 tons. So the crane capacity at the end of the boom should be sufficient to lift these panels. Otherwise, you will end up bringing, some other cranes. It will be very expensive. And the crane radius definitely should be checked. BMU socket, BMU restraint sockets are needed. So that need to be identified, the location, and that should be installed. Don't miss it. And waterproofing intersection is another critical area where everybody should take care, like intersection at the roof level where the facade meets with the roof. And nowadays, a lot of podium, gardens and all. So those areas also make sure proper overlapping, detailing, everything is done. So weather sealant compatibility with the weather condition is important. So when we take it for Indian conditions, if it is Mumbai conditions, take it something which is good for Mumbai. And yeah.
Shiju, sorry to interrupt. We're running out of time. If you can just speed this up, it will be.
Just coming to the last slide. Okay. Yeah. So the last one, the most important, again, a lot of MEP activities like welding will be happening inside the building. So there is and some metal cutting will happen. So during the spark, with the spark, the glass should not damage. So that protection also should be taken. So this is the last slide. So in the closing out, you should do the necessary testing and arrange all the product warranties. Most of the products a system is warranted. There will be a warranty of 10 years. Make sure you get it. Keep an attic stock, especially for major elements like these stones or anything like that. Later you won't be able to source it. So try to keep sufficient attic stock, compiled or as build information. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Now over to Ahmed. Thank you.
Thanks, Shiju, for that detailed presentation from a project management perspective, showing site examples. Now we'll move over to Anthony John, who will be talking about systems. So, John, I think you'll have to share. Yeah, perfect. Can you unmute yourself? We can't hear you.
Thank you, Shiju. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful presentation, and you pretty much covered, I would say, a project life cycle from.
Sorry, John, can you be a little bit louder? Can you just be a little bit louder? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect, perfect.
Okay. So, so thanks, Shiju, for covering the project life cycle from the concept stage right up to the handover and the do's and don'ts. So you've pretty much covered quite a lot of things that I had wanted to say. So I would innovate now and improvise and restrict myself to more on to the case study which I had planned, which is the 1 BKC in Mumbai. The unitized curtain wall. Coincidentally, it is very similar or probably the same system that you had installed or you had shown in your project as well. Right. This project was actually it's for the Vadva developers, and it is the master architect is James Law, and then we had RSP design consultants being part of it. The facade consultant was Predomin, and later on it was Fiti. And the project was also tested at Vasar India in Mumbai, in Murban. What we are going to be talking about are three aspects. One is the structural aspects, then the fabrication, assembly, logistics, installation, and the last one is going to be the testing part of it. To understand any project, before you start deciding on what you're going to do, and assuming that we've crossed the stage of tendering, we've gone through all these negotiations, and then we start with the actual, I would say, designing and constructing the facade that is suitable for the particular project. First and foremost, what you need to do is you need to understand your specifications. So I would like to put it up in a very simple format, condenses the most important critical items that needs to be considered from a structural perspective for the which is related to the tender specifications. So one of them is your wind load. What is the applicable wind load that is going to be on your project? Now this wind load is defined by the facade consultant, and there are different criterias. Either you do it through calculation using the Indian standard IS 875 part 3, or you do it with a wind tunnel test report. Depending upon where your building is, how is it located, and what shape of the building, you then decide on this. For this particular project, the specification of the project was a wind load of 1.8 kPa. The second aspect is understanding what are the modules that are coming into the project. The most typical project module, of course, we had a few different modules, but let's take on the most common module. And the most common module you have is 1.5 meters center to center. So each unit, which Shiju showed earlier, so we had two different units in this previous project. Here we had most of the units were 1.5 meters center to center. The height, which is the floor to floor height, was 4.2 meters. And as per the code, if you go by span over 240 plus 6.35, your deflection criteria is getting limited over to 17.5 millimeters. So that's the deflection criteria that we have to work over for your determining what is the size of your member that you want to propose for the project. The second thing that you need to take into consideration is what kind of movements are you going to have. So if there is a seismic movement, if there is any activity that is happening, then what kind of movements are you anticipating for that? So the specifications mentioned, it is plus minus 10 millimeters is what you have to allow for in both directions. The other part is then the building settlement, your movement due to thermal expansion, long-term creep, column shortening, all of this put together. The vertical movement was the system, which is the stack joint. You're expected to accommodate a building movement of plus minus 20 millimeters. This is pretty big. So when you do a plus minus 20 millimeters, what we need to do is the stack joint gasket needs to have proper support. Otherwise, it will fall over and you will not be able to achieve the proper requirement. Last but not the least is your air and water. What kind of air tightness? Now, again, Shiju had mentioned about the control layers. And the control layers, one of the control layers was the air control. What is the amount of air that is coming in from outside to inside? And why is that important? Because you have a lot of heat in our climatic conditions, heat coming in from outside to inside, like in Mumbai region. During summer, you now get 35, 37 degrees centigrade, probably even more, and you want to try and keep the cooling load by the HVAC units lower. And you want to make sure there is natural ventilation coming in, but at the same time, limited amount of ventilation that comes in. So the air penetration that was allowed was for a pressure differential of 300 Pascal and 600 Pascals for the water, because we have a lot of monsoon in our region there in Mumbai. Now, what are the other criteria that we need to take into consideration, which is contributing to the design of your moodlane and transom? You have some external elements, which are louvers in this particular case. The louvers are about 256 millimeters away from your face. So it's about 256 mm away from the face of your glass. And overall, they're about 400 mm away, which means when there is a load because of these loads, when there is an uplift coming up from the wind load, there is going to be moment being created over here. There is an additional load that is going to get transferred over to the member. So it is not enough that you define only for the wind load, but also to take care of these loads that is going to come onto your member. So you need to first identify what are the loads that are going to come in and how you're going to transfer the load back onto the structural slab level. Last but not the least, you also have to ensure, and that is check with the structural engineer on site, if the slab is designed to take care of those loads or not. 99% they would have taken care of it. There would be a safety factor, but it is always prudent, and you have to do due diligence in ensuring that the slab is capable of taking the loads as well. So what you see over here are the external louvers. This is the completed site, photograph of the completed site, and these are the brackets. This was taken during the project. That was on 3rd of April 2014. Uh, One aspect of it is that you may have designed a wonderful facade, you may have designed your mullions and transems, but if your mullions and transems, which are anchored, just like how Shiju said, is uh, back onto the floor slab, is not taken care of properly, if it is not designed properly, then the whole facade design is going to be a waste. You will never get a flat facade. You may also have structural issues. You may have failure on the facade. You may also have serious human and life safety issues coming up. Now, while you're designing for the facade, you need to also take into consideration what are the different issues that you have. Now, do you have an anchor bracket location coming in near a column? Do you have a shear wall? So you need to define or design anchor bracket which is floor mounted or face mounted. What kind of access, how you're going to do it? Is it a wind load, or is it going to be a double bracket system or a single bracket system? So those kind of things have to be taken into consideration. Now, you also have to take into consideration uh, your floor slab may not be flat, meaning there might be a slope. There will be undulations in the floor slab. So the left side top picture, you can see here, uh, this floor slab or this anchor bracket is originally not designed to take in this much amount of shims. The shim has to be right across the full face of your thing. Otherwise, the load transfer is not going to be proper. Secondly, the anchor bolt has to now be further checked because of site conditions for failure in bending, not just in shear. So there are additional checks you need to do to ensure that this is still going to work as planned, as designed. If not, then additional or remedial actions would have to be taken. The corner conditions, again, corner movement of the panel, how you're going to secure it, what you need to do, how you want to do it. Now, the anchor bracket design per se will be different. Different companies have different ways of doing it. Different fabricators have different ways of doing it. But in principle, they're the same. So you have one end of the panel which moves, and the other end of the panel remains fixed. In this case, in the corner condition, both of them are fixed, and the other end is a movable panel. So that takes care of your floor slab deflections, and because of any live load deflection or because of seismic, any building sway, so the panel is able to move and accommodate itself and not get affected in performance. This one, what you see here, is the starter track. Now the starter track is very important. It is very critical. The starter track generally does not take the dead load. It is only on the wind load. The dead load is taken up by here in the floor slab level, but there is a wind load that is occurring here. So this needs to be designed also properly. If this is not designed properly, you'll have failures in the bottom. So the starter track is as critical, and alignment of your starter track is even more important. In this particular case, this was like a suspended starter track. So you have one which is on the floor slab level, another one you also have suspended. And this particular design was on the suspended type. That's why you see this L-shaped angle bracket, and this is for the bracket that goes on top of it. The panels come and align on exactly on top of these panels in terms of these angles that you have here. So you have to ensure that for all site variations and all site conditions, all possibilities, the design is taken care of in the design workplace and not on site. because the people who are good at design, who are better qualified to do a proper design and come with a better solution, are the people in the office who are the key designers. So I would not recommend the design to be left over to the site, but rather to be addressed and get it done. It is like billing the cat ahead. So make sure that it is all taken care of. So this is one such typical condition where we had a very strange scenario where our typical unitized panel stack joint would be above the floor slab, whereas you had a balcony condition, and the balcony condition stack joint was not coming in line along with your normal panel. So you have a very small panel. What you see here, the spandrel panel continues across this balcony area, whereas the vision panel then from your stack joint, this goes up here, then up here, and even the spandrel panel is above there. Whereas here it stops off because right above it you have again another balcony. That being said, how do you do this return? This return interface needs to be taken care of. This 90-degree corner panel has to be taken care of. This was a simplistic facade, but this was a unitized panel that was integrated with this, and the unitized was also going straight up ahead as well. So we had a very complex corner condition which need to be designed properly. So it was designed in 3D. A mock-up sample was being done in the factory, and after all that was being done is when a site mock-up was also done before it was frozen, so that everybody was clear. The quality checklist was all made to ensure that the situation was all well understood. This detail, the inner finishing detail, is what you see once it is completed. So this is the photograph of when it was finished. And this is the same balcony from the other view. The system that we had used was the Schuko unitized system, and I assume all of you are aware of Schuko is a company which has been in the facade and fenestration industry since 1951, and we are there in over 75 countries, and we have systems from the B2C segment right up to, or you can say for individual villas, up to multi-storied tall buildings. You can from manual operations to automatic operations, building integrated systems, high-end security systems like bullet resistance, blast resistance, you name it, whatever you want in this field, we have a solution for it. Obviously, everything has a certain price, and what we do is we don't sell a product which is designed for a climate, an exact same product. We don't design it or sell it in the other markets. We ensure that whatever basic design or the basic concept and the principles behind the design are applied for the local climatic conditions, and a suitable product or suitable modifications of the existing product is being made and ensured that that is working. That's something that we are skilled at, and we've been quite successful. We've been here in India since 2008 and as a subsidiary since 2012. So the system that we selected for here is very commonly used in Middle East, in Europe, and I have used the system for the first time in the Middle East in 2001. And one of my first projects in US was also using the same system. That was in 2005, and that was the first time I had done a seismic test as well. So when this particular project in 2012 was done, I already had enough experience using this particular system on multiple project sites on fabrication and installation and testing. So when we proposed for this project, we said this is the best ideal system for this project, and let's go ahead with this. The facade consultant on board also agreed. This is the typical unit that we have for a +10 -8 kind of movement scenario, where the gasket is good enough, but the moment we have a situation like in our specifications of +-20, then the gasket by itself is not good enough. So you needed to have a support behind the gasket in order to take care of the loads, allow for the movements and perform. The general principle, what we have is an overlapping principle. So the verticals, which is what we have here, overlaps across the horizontal. The horizontal we call as a saddle gasket, and this is the coupling gasket. So you have an overlap coming on top of here, and similarly you have an overlap here, which means any water that comes to the front comes over here, and through a drainage notch in here, it comes outside. So that's the basic principle that we have, and that is why we're able to ensure we're able to reach very high test pressures. This particular system has even passed 1,400 pascals on water. What you see is a typical detail, a section detail. This is an extract from our catalog. So you have a corner cleated system. So the corner cleat, which also makes it much more stronger. So the glass is bonded, structurally bonded onto the frame, and you have either a thermal break or an aluminum profile as a peripheral profile, in order to ensure that depending upon the climatic condition, what your UL requirements are, you're then able to achieve whatever you need. We have a very similar situation, similar solution also being done in REC in Delhi, which has an overall U value requirement of less than 1.5. So this is a typical detail that we have, and this is what we call as a stack joint. Ideally, the location of stack joint would be in the point of counterflexure, where the bending moment is 0. In this case also, they wanted the stack joint to be similar to this, which is very common, which is almost at the floor slab level. What you see here on the right hand side is exactly the same picture of the element that is used for fabrication for the testing part. So that's the same element. So you see the same gaskets that is being used in the, so you just go back. So these are the gaskets. So you can just correlate these gaskets that you see in the test element here. So these are the gasket that we are talking about. The rain screen gasket, the front coupling gasket, and the back coupling gasket. So what we do is we take the parameters, we put it into STAD, and we analyze it. So this is the loading diagram of it. We do the correct releases. We ensure that because stack joint, you need to release the moments. So we do all the correct releases, and once that analysis is being made, we then end up with the deflection diagram and then calculate what is the maximum deflection that is anticipated from these elements. So depending upon that, we then decide, okay, for this particular IX value, then this is the deflection that we're going to get and how it needs to be done. So from your bending moment diagram, we then calculate what are the stress capacities and is it still fulfilling or not. We also ensure that the combined stress satisfies the unity criteria as well. So once the basic Mullion transom design has been made, we also verify for the bolt. The bolt meaning saying it's not only the anchor brackets or the anchors, but also in this particular case, we have the lower bracket that projects out. So you need to ensure that the loads are being taken care of, and the bolts that is connecting the louvers and the louvre mechanisms where the louvers are being fixed are not getting sheared off in it, because the bracket might be good enough, but if the bolts are not good enough and the loads are very high on your louvers, then the bolts could get sheared off. So we ensure that those calculations are also taken care of. This fin support is done. The load transfer of the fin to the Mullion back structure, which I already explained earlier. Then the BMU loads for the restraining pins, that also needs to be ensured, and that has to be taken care of, and that does not affect the or that's not bend your anchor brackets, or sorry, your fin bracket and damage your glass. So you need to ensure that load is also getting transferred back onto the substructure. So how often are your BMU restraining pins required? Where all are they required? And those restraining pins also need to be tested. Last but not the least, thermal calculations. So we also did a simulation of the thermal calculations because there was a verification required for the HVAC requirements. So for every section detail, thermal simulation was done, and thermal calculations on what is the U value that is passing on through the element is being also provided. Similar thermal calculations for the entire element can also be done, and it was done even for the REC project, and to prove that the proposed design will meet the project conditions. And in REC, we also done a thermal testing at Winwall, and that the end result of it also proved that what has been proposed meets the project requirements. So that is possible to be done. We can do thermal testing in India at the moment. And Bureau of Energy Efficiency is also coming up with requirements in order to ensure that we have a certain U frame values, and the people are well informed, are able to choose appropriately and design. So that is coming up in the near future as well. So that's on the basic design part of it. Now, one aspect of the design I have not touched base upon is the shop drawings. I mean, with the limited time that I have, I'm not getting into it. We all know the shop drawings are very important, and we all know that approval of shop drawings are very important. And unless you get the shop drawings approved, you should not start on fabrication. You can order the material based upon your system approval, but you should not start your fabrication unless you get the shop drawings and your site survey also done. Even to a certain extent for the unitized panels, since the floor slabs are predetermined, your unit size is also predetermined. All the typical units can start production, but if your shop drawings are not approved, then I wouldn't recommend proceeding on that. What is very important are, as I mentioned, approved shop drawings. Now, tag drawings. What are these tag drawings? Which is, you have to take each of your elevation, make a developed elevation for each of it, and then give an ID number for each of the panel that is coming in. And then you can combine and say, okay, this ID number panel can be used. I need about 200 of them, 400 of them, 1,000 of them, whatever may be the case. So in case of damage while you're during transportation or you're lifting or nickel sulfide or whatever may be the case, your project is not getting held. You can swap it with any other panel with the same ID number. So that is also possible. It will also help you in identifying the sequence of production, your sequence of transportation, and your sequence of lifting the elements onto your respective floor slabs in order to complete with your installation. So tag drawing is a very, very important aspect that needs to be done at an early stage. And along with the tag drawing, or even before that, I would say even before your shop drawing, if you're using the U-channel inserts that Shiju had mentioned about, then you need to do a layout drawing for that as well. Because your center to center of your panel has to align with the U-channel that is being embedded into the concrete. If it is not aligned, you will find that when you come in with the installation, then you won't find a place to put in your bracket where it is supposed to be. I have seen instances wherein the brackets are not aligned, they are away from it. And this is because there's a lack of, I would say, a proper drawing that has been transferred across over to the civil engineer or the general contractor on time. So that can be avoided if you do a layout drawing of your U channels, and that has to be done. The drawing is recommended to be done by whoever is coordinating the panel layouts. So it could be the facade consultant, or it could be the fabricator who's the facade contractor. Bar drawings, when you talk about bar drawings, it is the individual production drawings that needs to be sent in over to the shop floor. So each element will have a certain number of operations that need to be done. So for example, in this case, if you see this particular transom needs to be cut at a certain angle, there are certain holes that needs to be pre-drilled, and there are certain notches that needs to be done as well. So all this, like over here, you need to have these holes and these two notches need to be done. So this can be done in the CNC machine. So you need to make a production drawing for each of the bar and the length of the bar, give an ID for that, and you know for each of your unit, what are the components that go into it. So those are called as assembly drawings. So you need to make your bar drawings and you need to make your assembly drawings. So if you want to prepare this, the production design floor needs to prepare it. He has to have an approved shop drawing, and the approved shop drawing also needs to, you need to ensure that it is not just a typical area or shop drawing, but rather all the critical areas are also taken care of and it is being addressed into, right? Last but not the least, what you need to do is you need to do a sample fabrication, especially for a typical unit. If this is something that is a fabricator has already done multiple projects, then no problem. But if it is something that he's doing it for the first time, then you have to ensure that the entire team is learning it properly. We also know there is a high turnover rate in our factories and on site. So again, it is always recommended that whoever is going to be, if the team has not done the same fabrication earlier, if it is a new team, the fabricator must have done it earlier. But if the team is not new, you are same back to square one. You will have a few knowledgeable people out in the office. The supervisor might be knowledgeable, but the actual people who are going to do it will not be knowledgeable enough. So it is always recommended to do one typical unit fabrication and ensure that everybody understands the full sequence, how it has to be done. And if you have a critical junction detail, again, do those critical junction detail. And if you need to have this also done, a trial sample on site, get a trial sample also made on site so the people understand how those have to be put together. This just zooming up and saying to what extent you need to make kind of details. This is the notching, this is the dimension. So those kind of detailed dimensions drawings have to be provided. And further production drawings, even much more detail for each individual element also has to be done. So doing fabrication assembly, now shop drawings, fabrication drawings, tag drawings, all that has been done. Now comes the real work, right? So the real work, let's assume there's a minimum level of equipment that is required, and that is already available in the factories. You have a CNC machine, you have the quality process. You're not depending upon quality control, but rather you're depending upon a quality assurance, which is the process is laid in place that after every element is being produced in accordance with your production drawing, which is your bar drawing, then there is a quality inspector who checks it and tags it off and say, yeah, it's QC inspected, good to go, and it can move on to the assembly element. So the assembly element, when he's assembling, when he's got all the relevant parts together, then he knows, okay, what part is what, which one it goes, what is the component, and how to assemble it. So he's got an assembly drawing, and he knows the part ID numbers also, and he's able to put it together. So what we see here is a typical sample board in the factory. This is not the one that you submit to the client. This is more for the people in the factory to have a quick look at it and say, okay, this is what it goes. This is how it's going to look like. This is what my shop drawing, and this is what it is. If I need a measurement, this is what it is going to be. And this is the miter joint. We said our units are corner cleated mitered. So this is we call it as a miter set, which helps it to clamp in position while the corner glue, there is a 2-part epoxy that is being injected, which is what that you see on that yellow color stuff. It's a very cementitious material, becomes very, really hard. And while that is gluing, we're able to hold it in place in order to assemble it. And we also have a nailing possibility. We also have a screw possibility, and we also have a crimping possibility. This particular item was a corner assembly. So corner unit was being assembled to see how it all goes in. What is a miter? What is the angle? Whether you can cut the same angle. Sometimes the mullions are so deep that it will be very difficult to cut it. So all the problems and issues that you're going to be facing can be resolved by doing this sample assembly. That's what you see in these photographs over here. Now on site, again, the first sample, the panel that is coming on, that is also being taken on site. It has been transferred in dollies, and you have different methodologies of transportation. Either you can transport it vertically, or you can transport it horizontally on your trailers. You can also transport it, and there are items like, for example, the project that I done in New York City in Madison Avenue. You don't have the option of stocking on a storage facility on site. So you need to lift it and install it straight away. So you do have a limited number of locations where you're able to lift and install it. Whereas at the same time, in another site, you have no possibility of there's absolutely no chance for you to do this, and so you need to store it to the relevant floors the floor above, and then have it installed. In this case, what we have is we have the panels being stored down below and then lifted above and installed from the floor down down below. So there was a mix being done. Not all of them were lifted from below. There were some which were also stored above the floors on the previous floor above and then dropped down as well. So depending upon the site location, the availability of the crane, and so on and so forth, it was being done. You see a typical panel. I think this is very similar to what Shiju's photo also was, where you have those anchor brackets being, we call it as sword plates, which is being projected out. This helps you in guiding the panel from above, slide into it also. Now, one aspect of it that you need to be very particular during the fabrication, or even say prior to fabrication, is the glass bonding. On the glass bonding, there is the structural component of it. You need to ensure you send it to the structural sealant supplier, whoever it may be, and you have to ensure that they do a structural bonding test, because what happened, an addition test. The reason being, um, sometimes depending upon the surface, and even for this for the same kind of whether it is a powder coating or whether it is anodizing, or whether it is a PVDF coating that you have on your Mulliner transom, you might need a primer. Sometimes you may not. Sometimes you would definitely need a primer. And similarly, the bite also, what is your structural sealant bite, that needs to be approved by the sealant supplier. So you need to ensure that this is given to them. The typical shop drawing is given to them. You get a preliminary approval saying that yes, and they will then tell you what is the sealant. Their product number needs to be used, and once you give them the samples from your coated samples, they will then do a bonding test and tell you, give you a test report for that as well, and give you the proof that yes, this particular sealant works. There is also quality procedure on different procedures like the butterfly test and so on and so forth, which needs to be adhered to. Registry also has to be maintained to ensure that the bonding is also done correctly. So especially on systems where it is not captured, then the structural bonding becomes a very key aspect, which needs to be one of the key quality control and quality assurance aspects. For logistics, as I already mentioned, sequence is very important. So as Shiju said, planning. So same thing, planning, planning, planning. Ensure that you're from the tag drawing to the logistics, which is into whether it is a horizontal or A-frames or whether it is vertical. What is the sequence of the panels that is getting loaded? What are the panels that are getting produced? In what sequence are they being brought over to site? In which floors are they going to be stored? And how are you going to install? In which sequence are you going to install them? All that needs to be planned, and then your transportation done accordingly. Protection is very, very important during transportation. So for example, if you're doing so the same panel, like what you've seen in the photograph, in the middle photograph, is horizontal. If the same thing is vertical, normally what happens is the glass support, the glazing support for the glass is only at the bottom. Whereas if you're going to transport it vertically, then you also need the glass supports on the side, meaning if the side becomes your, the glass is going to be transported over a distance of 100 or 120 kilometers away, and it is going to be held vertical, then you have a problem. So you need to ensure that the glass support is also provided in that location. So small nitty-gritties, but needs to be addressed. This is a typical panel. So they've already installed here on one row, and they're installing the panel above. And this is a panel that's being installed a little bit away from the corner condition. If you see on the right hand side, the corners are left open. This particular project, there was an issue with the corner panel because the extrusion of the corner got delayed. There was a failure of the die at the extruder's place, so they had to redo the die. And the beauty of this particular system is you don't have to start from the corner. You can start away from the corner and you can still complete it and achieve the same performance levels at what you're looking for. So that's the advantage of the system. All you need to do is you have to leave out 3 panels at any stage. As long as you leave 3 panels of, so whether you're having a hoist, like how Shiju had mentioned, if you want to leave a hoist or a loading bay, anything, as long as you leave 3 panels away, you will be able to completely fill in and ensure your tightness and everything else is still maintained, because the saddle gasket joint is not given at the cruciform joint, but it is given at least 200 mm away from the cruciform joint. So that's the flexibility that allows you over here. So this is the one what you see where the panel was lifted from a floor above and then installed, like in this particular condition. And the first figure, which is the previous one, you saw it was taken from the floor below. So there are two kind of scenarios that is also possible and can be done. And as Shiju mentioned, for the project in New York, we did transport through the hoist. The panels, the unitized panels were transported through the hoist and not lifted through the crane, because that was a refurbishment project. Now, during installation, there are a few quality measures that you need to see. One is like, the design says that this is what the depth of it, the face width of your panel is going to be. So when you're assembling it, you can easily cross-check the simple measures, your face width, your stack joint height. You can very easily measure and see whether it is you've achieved your design parameters or not, whether it is plumb. I mean, these are all not using laser levels and other stuff, which is just using a standard stuff, but still it is possible to be done and you're able to align it. One beautiful thing about this system is because of the sword plate, alignment is a lot more easier because the panel can go only between the sword plates. So it's a lot more easy to align this panel. The only issue has to be whether it is in or out. That in or out can be taken care of by using a simple plumb line. We also use our line, we call in Hindi as line Dori, to ensure that all these panels are all aligned as well. We can easily measure that if this is anything is flow slab is, your panels have to be aligned. They have to be in line. So those things have been done. The one on the left hand side, what you see is the parallel pop-up window that is already comes pre-installed into the element unitized itself. Right, now let's move on to the testing aspects of it. But there is a specification that has been given. So we have two kinds of testing that needs to be done. One testing is the laboratory testing, and the second one is the on-site testing. So this is the laboratory testing that was done for this particular project. So fabrication has been made. You can see these panels. You have seen these hooks also. I mean, for the facade brackets, the same thing over here. You've seen that in the actual project condition. You've seen these. This is the corner condition. What you've seen is the typical one on the project on the starter panel. So the same starter panel kind of conditions as well here. This is used in the right at the top because we have a coping and you have a closure. So we lift using this particular panel. This is used also as a lifting lug. Normally what we also do is using a spreader bar. This is very, very important. So let me just show you. So if you see here, there is a spreader bar that is being used in order to lift the panel. So this is to avoid these swords from collapsing or damaging the panel, so that it will help you to align your panels above easier. So spreader bar is quite important for you when you're installing as well. This is one row. This is a typical condition where you install it row by row, and then you come with the top panel. So we already seen one photograph earlier, which is, so this is another one, which is the left side corner, and this is being installed, lifted. This is the test rig in Morbad, and this is the last panel that is getting dropped in. And actually I had a video, I couldn't find it. This panel, you didn't have to really work hard on it. It was just sliding smoothly because we have a special wax which we use on the sides, and using which this slides down very smoothly and comes down, and you only need the last, I would say, just a little, if press on it, it kind of goes down. It's very easy to install these panels. The criteria, as we said earlier, was air infiltration 300 pascals, static 600, dynamic water using the aero engine was 600 pascals. Design load was plus minus 1800. I think the number is missing. Seismic was plus minus 10 mm. Then after seismic, we also did a repeat air and repeat water. because even after seismic activity and earthquake, the panel, the performance should not get compromised. We want to ensure the same performance is there. No glass should break, no gasket should come out. All those things also have to be there. And subsequently, we also have a proof load criteria, which is 150% of design load. So when you do 150% design load, again, there should be no glass breakage. There should not be any permanent deformation above a certain limit as well. So those criteria are also taken into consideration in order to determine whether it is a pass or fail. So when we did the testing, the allowable air infiltration was 56 cubic meter. We achieved very, very low value. I think it was about 6.3 cubic meter per hour. That was that airtight. Using just gasket, no sealants. It is only gaskets. Water tightness, I mean, that because it was pretty tight, there's no water leakage happening. Deflection allowable was 17.5 mm. Again, it was way below we were able to achieve, because normally when we do the calculations, we don't take the strength of glass into consideration. That is ignored, and it is not generally allowed. So we were able to achieve it very easily as well. Seismic activity, post seismic activity, plus minus 10 millimeters. I mean, I do have a video of it, but considering the time and no, I'm not showing it here now. There was no breakage. Repeat air and water pass was required, and it has also passed. So all the green button shows everything has passed. 2.7 kilopascal was your proof load. The proof load is 1.5 times 1.8 kPa. Again, no breakage. Deformation was also well within the limit. There was hardly any deformation that was noticed. And that's it from my side. Thank you very much. My contact details are over here. In case if you need the PDF version of my presentation, please feel free to contact info@showco.in, and we'll be able to share our details. Any questions you all have, you can now post them.
Thanks, John, for that informative presentation. Shiju, can we have you back? We'll give you a break for 2 minutes, John, till you get your breath back. I'll take some questions for Shiju. Right. Shiju, there's a question for you which asks, do you see a greater role of digitization in facades planning and execution, particularly for high rises?
Get you. Can you tell me again?
Do you see a greater role of digitization in facades for planning and execution, particularly in high rises?
The digitization.
Yeah. For planning and execution.
Yeah, definitely. I think we should go for the latest technologies available, and that will definitely improve all the systems, the processes, everything. So I think we should definitely go for it. Yes.
Right. There's a question somebody's asking. One second. This one is these are 3 points basically by one gentleman. Facade testing spray test, number 1. Glass protection due to cement slurry spray, and waterproofing detail at podium and terrace.
Okay, glass testing with flood testing you're talking about, first one.
Spray testing, right? Facade testing, spray testing.
Yeah. Okay, so facade leakage is a major problem everywhere, especially in places like Mumbai. So yeah, there are some testing like hose test we do, flood testing we do. Other than that, there are some other tests also which I recommend, like in European countries and all. Many of our international projects, there are some other testing which is available. One is a thermal scanning method, and another one is electric field vector mapping method. So these are like this kind of an electric conductivity through a water medium. It is based on that. So those kind of advanced technologies are available. So I think we should always think about that. Now, regarding waterproofing, see, always there are couple of things which I would like to talk about waterproofing. One major problem in waterproofing, one major issue which we are observing is lack of detailing. So detailing should be done, especially the horizontal waterproofing, which is the roof waterproofing, and its connection with the facade waterproofing. these are most of the cases, these are two different materials. So material compatibility is a key thing over here, because from the facade, most of the case it is an APDM membrane which is coming, and from the from the roof it may be a spray applied 2-component or 3-component kind of mix application which is coming over here, or it can be a self-adhesive membrane. So it's compatibility. These are the weak points. Another issue is like people going for something like cheap materials. Though that is another case. So that should be avoided. Go for something good materials, and all the testing should be conducted. Especially what happened in facade erection, the supervision gets it is less, I should say. What happened, because this is on the edge or on the periphery, the safety is a major concern, so many people don't want to go over there to inspect it properly. So that lack of inspection is one reason why there are a lot of issues related to facade leakages.
Okay, right. John, are you there? I can take a question for you now. Yeah, John, are you there? Okay, I think he's okay. I'll take another question for you, Shiju. What are the options to reduce condensation in facade glass?
See, I would like to say it in a different way. Condensation is actually showing like your window or your facade is doing a good job. Condensation is happening mainly because of the difference in temperature between external and internal environment. So when there is a condensation, it shows that okay, your system is working good, and that is because of the humidity level. So the condensation to reduce the low E level glasses can be used. That will help a lot. But I should say that in case if it is a cold weather condition area, there are options like snow removal and all. There are heating options are available. For now, our conditions, it is common. I think it is okay. But low E glasses can be utilized. But it is definitely showing that your facade is doing a good job related to the thermal conductivity.
Right. Okay. John, are you there? Back?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah. So the question for you, as a system company, what would you generally suggest or propose for unitized system bracket material, whether in extruded aluminum brackets or HDG MS brackets? Are the extruded aluminum brackets a part of your facade system?
We have extruded aluminum brackets as part of our facade system, and we used to sell also HDG steel brackets as well. In fact, as I was telling you earlier, my first project I installed while I was working in the US for Schuco used HDG steel brackets supplied by Schuco. So we have both the brackets, aluminum brackets and steel brackets. We generally recommend steel brackets, but remember the steel bracket alloy is not the same as your extrusion alloy, your normal Mullin Transom alloy. So Mullin Transom is either 6063T6 or 6060T66, whereas your extrusion is either 6061 or 6085, or a much more high strength structural alloy. So both are available, and I would prefer going for an aluminum bracket rather than a steel bracket. But sometimes cost comes into consideration, and everybody wants the bottom line, and that's where people tend to move towards the hot dip galvanized bracket rather than an aluminum extruded bracket.
Right. Another question for you in 1BKC.
I would also like to add one more point. The general testing that is being done, this is an earlier question that was raised to Shiju, is ARMA 501.2 for on-site testing. So that gives a clear indication on what are the parameters and how it has to be tested. So it's ARMA 501.2.
Right. Okay, there's another question for you. In the 1BKC project, how are the sunshade fin brackets, fixed rain screen gasket, and the front couple gasket allowing water to enter the dry chamber? If so, do they have to be externally sealed after installation of the panels? Basically, does the sunshade fin brackets pierce the rain screen gasket and the front couple gasket.
Correct. In fact, Shuku's general philosophy is that any sunshade bracket, it should not pierce your main barrier. It can pierce your front rain screen gasket, which is the front bubble gasket, right? But it should not pierce your backside, which is the gasket in my slide. I had showed about the vertical coupling gasket and the saddle gasket. It should not pierce that. Now, there are designs where, because of very high load conditions, when you have a very high projections, where you need to pierce into it. At that time, then we design special brackets and special sealants and details and gaskets in order to overcome that scenario. One example is the Berjuman project in Dubai, where I was part of the design and implementation. There we had done a special gasket which was used to take care of the penetration. But 90% of the cases, we ensure that penetration does not occur. So the load transfer is done just before your the gasket line occurs, and from there through the anchor bracket scenario, we transfer it back to your flow slab. So we don't penetrate.
Right.
We do not recommend penetration.
Right. Okay. There's another question. For a large panel size, let's say 1500 by 3600, what type of framing system is better, unitized or other conventional systems?
No, unitized and conventional system is more to do with your type of building. If you are looking at a high-rise building, then definitely a unitized system is a way forward. If you are looking at a low-rise or a mid-rise building, then you can take a call whether you want to go for a unitized or a conventional system. And if you're going for a low-rise building, it really doesn't make sense to go for a unitized system. Then for a low-rise building, a conventional system is good enough. So it's not to do on the panel size. It is more to do with what type of usage you're going to have and what type of building it's going to be.
Right.
And the schedule. And the schedule.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Shiju, for you a question. What is the distance between the external face of glass to RCC structure face?
Okay, so in our case, we had around 300 millimeters.
Okay, you had 300 millimeters.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So in a couple of the projects which I did, we had around 300 millimeters from the external to inside. I'm not talking. I'm talking about the very external edge of the facade. So that gap was much less. If you are talking about internal face of the facade and the slab edge, that is something like I think hardly 100 millimeter. So that need to be normally we can feel it. There will be a flashing for smoke, and additionally there will be some kind of filling. Here in India, people normally go for vermicular concrete, I believe. So the project which I shown is outside India. So what we use there, we use stone wool. So around 100 mm thick stone wool, around 80 kg per meter cube density. That will give very good, fire resistance. So for some time, now, I mean, for the most of the building, fire resistance, like it's all for people's safety. It is not for the building safety. It's for people's safety. It is not like damage can happen for the building, but people should be evacuated fast. So, like, it can give you like almost 1 hour fire rating so that people can evacuate fast.
Right. Okay. So question for you, John. Saddle gasket and stack joint are designed for vertical movement, which was shown plus or minus 20 mm in the presentation. What about the plus or minus 10 mm horizontal movement in seismic? How is this accommodated in the facade?
Okay. It's a very simple trick. You see, when you're talking about a plus minus 10, in fact, the same system we have also passed movement of plus minus 28. So it is possible to be done because your angle that happens on the movement is only about 0.2 to 0.25 degrees when the floor above is moving, right? And your movement is also relative. When I had mentioned about anchor brackets, I had said one anchor bracket is fixed, the other one is movable. So when you have two panels together, the movement you're talking about is only a relative deflection because of your slope. Now imagine you have a deflection of your span is about 6 meters, and your, let's say, your livelihood deflection is about 15-20 millimeters. But your actual span between adjacent, the relative distance, is only 1.5 meters from your fixed point of one unit to the fixed point of the next unit. So the relative deflection is only going to be a few, hardly a few millimeters. It might be even 0.5 to 1 mm. So it's easier to accommodate the seismic movements, even large seismic movements. The key to pass your seismic movement is to ensure that even after your movement is happening, that is your angle that happens, right? I told about 0.25 to 0.5 degrees. Even after that movement happens, the joints are still remaining sealed. And that's the key. If you're able to ensure the joints are remaining sealed, then you'll be able to pass. The major problem is when people start depending upon silicon and their joints, and it is not, you don't take care of a proper addition, then it opens up. Then we need to repeat our water, you have a failure happening.
Right. Okay. Shiju, for you, another question. What is the method statement for broken glass replacement when all the tower cranes are removed? Core wall panels, there is no access from inside.
So you have access from outside, I hope. For that you definitely need access from outside. So that's why we always go for a BMU. So BMU is key for this. So otherwise you need to have some kind of other arrangement like gondolas from the top. So you need to bring it down. For the system, how it is connected with the gaskets and all, I think probably Mr. Anthony will be a better person to answer you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's correct. I can add on to what Shiju said. When you're bringing in the glass, remember, normally you will also have a gap between the edge of glass to the glass edge frame. That's between 3 millimeters to 6 millimeters. That's what you allow for as a standard. But when you have a glass breakage happening in the vision area, you can bond from inside. The spandrel area or in the areas like the shear wall, which is what the question was, then your the size requirement is also much lower. You have special tools in which you can bond from the outside. You also have special clamps because the single part structural sealant takes a long time to cure as compared to your two part, which is done at the factory. So you need to hold it in place until it cures properly. So there are special clamps available which you can hook onto those units and hold the glass in place until it cures before you take them out.
Right.
So that is, in fact, during your method statement, that is one of the most important aspects that needs to be also submitted. Replacement of glass.
Okay. So we'll take last 2 minutes of questions. What finishing do you suggest for aluminum brackets? Does chromatizing help?
I would not, just to get you in, this is something pretty common in India. I've had a lot of this feedback and requests, but just to, it's good that you brought it up. Just pure chromatization, leaving it like that for long is not advisable because it is also carcinogenic. So generally what people recommend, the industry recommends also, is that you should do as a minimum flash anodizing. Flash anodizing is 5 microns on it, and that is good enough for protection.
Right. We'll take one more question. This one is, I mean, there are so many questions. Not able to pick one. Just a second. Right. About this, 1 second. Right. Can you put some light on fire performance of SSG if the sealant in SSG considered as a sealant or an adhesive, and what performance does it achieve in terms of insulation and integrity?
Okay, before the sealant fades off, I think your glass will break.
Correct.
So, with the heat being generated.
Right. Okay. Right. I'm not taking the common questions. Okay, there's one question here for Shiju. how much productivity to be considered for installation of unitized panel for high-rise building in schedule? What are the latest equipments available other than tower crane or hoist to expedite work and increase productivity?
See, when it comes to productivity, it all depends on where you build it and what kind of facade panel, like what is the size of the facade panel, what is the weight of the facade panel. So it's a lot of criteria in that. In some cases, the building shape will be different. There will be twisted, there may be twisted frames also may be needed. So this is a general statement, but when I talk about this particular building which I did, so we had almost 5,500 unitized panels on that, and the product we received, like, you know, we were doing, like, there were 2 towers and 2 tower cranes, so we were using we were getting like 30 panels in a day. So we did that. We started somewhere in I think in March, and we finished in October. Then they're building up just the installation, not the go back work, not the seed and filling and all that all took time. So just the erection part of it. So if you take the crew member, when you say work, I mean productivity, you should know the crew member. So we had something erectors around 30 people and 30 panel in a day. So it's like, you know, 1 erector, 1 panel in a day probably. But you know, there are some projects, like I was reading through some what was the productivity achieved in project like Burj Khalifa. I saw that, you know, when they started, they had something like 40 panels they installed in a day. Later, it became 175 panels in a day. So that is the, you know, I mean that's a major building which we know where the productivity reached in a very high level. Regarding equipment, there are some people, you know, they use monorails on the top. You can use monorail only for the installation of the facade, and for the facade, if you don't want to depend on the crane. So one of our project, what we did, we have some, we don't want to depend on these you know, these major tower cranes. So we use some smaller cranes which is available, and that is like a spider crane kind of thing that can be bought in, and there are some other small crane available which you can take it through even hoist, and you can utilize, you can bring it to any floor and start installing it. Electrically operated winches, that is another option available. So electrically operated winches you can utilize for, you know, installation of this facade.
Right. So I think we'll end here. We are already over time today. So thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Thank you, Mr. Shiju. Thank you, Mr. John, for taking time out and showcasing your expertise on unitized facades, both from a project management point of view and from a system supplier point of view. So thank you so much. So I will share the balance questions with you guys so that you can then respond to them at your earliest convenience. So thank you so much. So our next webinar, thank you. Our next webinar is on Thursday. So this is on metal roofs and facades in residential building. It's a more it's a different topic from what we've been presenting all this while. These are more for residential homes, but using metal cladding and metal roofs. So we have 2 eminent retail architects, Rahul Gore from Mopolis Architects and Sumit Dhawan from City Space 82 Architects, who are the presenters for this session. So you can register for this webinar at webinars.wfmmedia.com. You'll also be receiving today's webinar's video 2 hours from when we end this session. So you can see today's recording there. In case you don't have that as an attachment on the email, you can visit this website, webinars.wfmmedia.com. So thank you all. Thanks for your time. I appreciate you all taking time and attending today. Thank you, John, once again. Thank you, Shiju, once again for your time. I'm closing today's session. So all of you, please stay at home, stay safe. I hope we can win this battle towards COVID, against COVID-19 together. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.